Hello, Taurus. Welcome to your March 2023 astrology forecast. Again, I'm so sorry this is so late. I just really wanted to spend extra time on these readings because it's such an important month and we're still getting it out before all the big stuff happens, so that's okay. But let's go ahead and talk about what is going on for Taurus throughout the month of March. Now, the big events: Pluto coming into Aquarius, which is going to be massive for you, Taurus, all the fixed signs, really. We have Saturn coming into Pisces, and we also have Mars moving out of Gemini finally. I actually want to start with Mars for you, Taurus, because I know that Mars has really shaken up your financial world. It has shaken up the way you are applying your skills and your talents. And in a way, some of you may have gotten a little bored with the status quo in your life. You may have been feeling like someone kind of came and stirred the pot and was like, this is getting dull. I'm not interested in this anymore. And even though this is my core skill set, these are my talents, this is what I have to work with, I'm still wanting more, and what I have has only been able to take me so far. And you've sort of reached this pinnacle point in your life. Now remember, Mars has been in Gemini since the end of August, so a lot has happened since the end of August. There's been a lot of change, a lot of transitions, a lot of new desires that have really crept up for us. For you, yes, a lot of focus on your financial world, a lot of focus on, what you're doing next for money and the way you're going to increase that and the way you're going to enhance your lifestyle in some way, shape, or form. Now, I do know that Taurus is you're Venus ruled, you're gracious, you're grateful, you're appreciative of the things that you have. But once in a while, right, I want more, right? I want more. I want to experience more. I want something better. I feel limited, and Mars is going to activate that feeling of limitation if you're not in a state of growth at that time. Now, what's happening next, Mars coming into Cancer, really activating this learning house. Tons and tons of learning and information can come through. Now, I'm starting to realize that planets, they have certain effects while they're doing their transit. So like while Mars was in Gemini, he had certain effects. But the real outcome of that doesn't really happen until that planet leaves the sign. So you're really going to start to see that all that desire that had been, and even with the North Node in your sign, I'm going to save Saturn and Pluto for last. And we'll talk about the North Node in just a second. But Venus coming into a conjunction with the North Node is going to be adding to this. But the desire was there and the ideas were kind of swirling around. And there was just kind of this, I know that I want this, but I don't really know what I need to do in order to go get it. So Mars is opening you up to the world of information now. You can research, you can study, you can learn, you can evolve, you can talk to people, you can collaborate, you can go out there and be a little bit more social and really start connecting a bunch of things together. The things that you're connecting and the things that you're learning are in direct relationship. They're in direct relation to all the desires that Mars had placed while he was doing his stuff in the second house. Okay? You're in a slow period of manifestation right now. And that Mars retrograde is going to slowly release the energy of that retrograde over the next several months. Now, I know he's been out of retrograde already for a couple of months as of January, so it's not like it's new, but he finally just came out of his shadow phase. All right, so pre-shadow, retrograde, and post-shadow are really intense times of change and evolution. So only just now are we getting Mars out of that. And as he moves into that third house in Cancer, he's actually finally starting to do something about what happened while he was retrograde or in shadow phase. Okay. So over the next several months, as he traverses through Cancer and Leo and even Virgo, the manifestations are going to start to take shape slowly but surely for you. Okay, this is very unique for Taurus. I haven't really talked about this with any other zodiac sign because no other zodiac sign had Mars retrograde in the second, right? That was you. So it's very different for you. And the way that things are manifesting, it's going to be a slow unfoldment as we follow Mars through the signs this year. All right. Now, I did say I wanted to talk about this North Node before we talk about Saturn and Pluto. So let's talk about it. Venus coming back home, beautiful Venus coming into Taurus, I'm sorry. She is happy to be home, but she's also got some really weird house guests. I always envision like these houses as actually being actual houses, okay? And I always see Taurus as being this beautiful mansion with incredible gardens and all natural marble and like all natural everything. She comes in and she's got to sit down to dinner with this weirdo, okay? North Node is a weirdo, okay? He's ravenous, he's a little greedy, he doesn't have manners, he's just sort of all over the place, he's a little delusional, and he's kind of one of those people that like talks a really, really big game, but has very little to show for it. Now, ultimately, the North Node really represents our truest desires, and which is one of the reasons why modern Western astrologers calls it a destiny point. Yeah, it is a destiny point because there's so much desire there that we can't help but move in that direction. Now, for the last year and a half, since the very end of 2021, the North Node has been in your sign. And there has been, a need for Taurus to balance out a sense of themselves versus how they are in relation to other people. Now, some people may have had some real struggles in their romantic relationships, and they've had to really release a lot of fears about intimacy and loyalty and true connection and letting someone in without losing yourself, okay? Everything that happens with the nodes is relational, and we cannot separate them. We can't only just look at that North Node, right? So you really had a lot going on in terms of like, who am I? And maybe struggling to really define what that even is. Who are you, Taurus? And you're like, I don't really know. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out what I want and where I want to go and what's important to me. I'm trying to figure out my priorities, but I also need to take into account this other person or this other aspect of my life, and I need to find a way to mesh these two together. Now, what happens with the North Node is there's like this pile of desire that kind of piles up because there's a lot of strangeness with that North Node. It's not a particularly fluid point where energy just flows through. It kind of creates stagnation, actually. And that node, right, or the desires just sort of keep piling up and hitting up against that node. Now, the node is leaving in July. And that just so happens to be the same time that Venus, your ruling planet, is going to be retrograding in your fourth house. So in July, this is happening way on the DL. Like Saturn and Pluto and Mars are way more important this month. The reason why I'm spending so much time talking about this is because it's happening way on the DL, and it's going to start to make a lot more sense in July when things start releasing. And a lot of the effects and the events of this month, which may seem like they're really coming out of nowhere, is because Venus is like, she's taking note of these desires that have been clogged up. And she's going to start releasing them slowly over time as she retrogrades here, July, August, and September. But this is like really preparation mode. And so the world around you is starting to shift and evolve so that these desires can come to fruition when the node leaves. We won't really see any effects until after it's gone. And then you'll start to understand the relationship stuff, the new identity that you've created. And it's all very strange right now. You can't probably really wrap your head around it, but you will looking back. Okay, this is, I think, one of the reasons why it's so hard to see something when you're in it. And then when you look back, you're like, okay, got it. That makes sense now. The node is one of the reasons why, because it's very hard to wrap your head around what's actually going on when you're in the midst of a nodal transit like this. Okay? So just put that on the back burner. We'll come back to it. Now, the big stuff, Saturn coming into Pisces and Pluto coming into Aquarius. Now, for the fixed signs, Pluto is like the big kahuna, okay? Because Pluto, like you're coming off of Saturn. Saturn had been in Aquarius since the very end of 2020. Saturn comes in, had come in, and he was squaring all the fixed signs. So yes, you certainly felt the effects of Saturn. For you, it may have been a little bit more of an aggressive stagnation or an aggressive kind of frustrated energy where things that, I'm not saying you didn't have any growth at all. I know a lot of people that made a lot of money over the past couple of years. So it may not have been every area of your life, but it's also like things just weren't really properly operating, and now that Saturn comes into Pisces, that energy is shifting, and now you have a sextile energy, which means Saturn is going to be much more supportive for Taurus. Pluto is the big one though, because now Saturn's gone and now Pluto comes in, and he's going to be in your 10th house for 20 years. He comes in, now he dips his toe into the Aquarian pool this month, and he's, he is going to be going back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius 2 different times. So he is going to be hitting up against this 10th house cusp for 2 years. Of course, we know that Pluto is transformative, quote unquote, okay? He absolutely forces an evolution to occur. But the thing with Pluto is that this is not conscious, and there's no way you can make it conscious. Like, I'm sorry, that's what Mercury is for, but Mercury is a different planet, okay? Pluto, like here you are up here, operating, living your life, having your conscious thoughts, making good decisions, doing what you need to do every day. And here comes Pluto, and he sort of like lifts you up from the bottom up, and you don't really have any control over it. It's just something that really happens. Now, the problem with Pluto is that a lot of people get scared, and there's tons of fear associated with Pluto because you can't see it. It's like if you were like on a boat, you're floating on a boat in the ocean, and all of a sudden this giant wave comes up. Like there's nothing you can do about it, and all you can do is really just brace yourself. That's it. But if you try to fight the wave and try to start rowing, right? And you try to start, I'm thinking of like a little like tiny boat, like with oars. You start rowing, you're going to be working your butt off super hard, and still that wave is still going to come. You cannot avoid it. Pluto can get easier when you just sort of roll with the punches. And you don't get upset about the stuff that doesn't work. And you don't get upset about the stuff that falls apart or falls to pieces. And you don't get upset about the people who are acting crazy in your life. This is a time really where Taurus is going to have to learn to genuinely take their power back and just allow everyone to do what everyone does and to not let it affect you in a lot of ways. Some Taurians might be feeling really frustrated by the state of the world, okay? And you might be, put in a position where you're like, I want to try to fix a problem, right? Whether it's through philanthropy or working with a company that you genuinely align with in terms of values and morals, or whatever the case is. I do think Taurus is going to want to do their part in a much bigger way, really amping up the philanthropic aspect of their lives, the philanthropic aspects of their careers. Instead of just going after just money, it's like, well, can I make money while still doing something wonderful for the world? And it doesn't mean you have to quit your job or whatever. It's just that if you're working for a big corporation that, you're not really happy with the way they're doing something, like let's say you work for Apple and you're really upset about, their contribution to what's happening over in China or over in, the Democratic Republic of Congo, like with all of the metal mining and everything like that. So you get really upset about it and you're like, I don't think I can work here anymore. I don't agree with what's going on. And you are more probably going to be fighting for the underdog, fighting for the people that don't have voices, fighting for the people that, that cannot be seen, and the people that are in the shadows. There is that wave coming up. Like, you can't help but care. You can't help but, it just is just going to matter to you. Right? There's not a lot you can do. It's just going to matter to you. And that's going to change you, right? As in a square, in Aquarius, it's going to square you, right? This is clearly in a square with your ascendant, like exactly. Squaring especially if you're a Taurus rising watching this. It is, squaring you. And so it's going to be a pretty aggressive. Squares tend to have a more Mars aspect or Mars quality, right? There's an aggressiveness there. So you're going to be making changes. You're going to be making changes in your career. You're going to be making changes in your work life. Like, let's say you're a business owner. You may start saying, 15% of the proceeds are going to be going to, this cause or whatever. And I'm not saying all of you are going to be working in the charitable realm. I'm just saying that it's going to be very hard to sustain a job or, a place in society if it doesn't really mean something to you. And you will be doing whatever it is that you possibly can do to get yourself in a position where it matters. All right, and that's Pluto, and he's gonna really push you hard over the next couple of years to make sure that you're aligned. Like I say, this is a big giant wave coming up from under you, and your conscious mind can fight it all you want, but there's nothing you can do. You're becoming a different person, and it's going to be beautiful. But the more you hang on to the person that you used to be, isn't it poetic, by the way, Taurus, that this is happening, right around the time. Now, I know the node isn't officially leaving until July, but this is all happening right around that time, because in a couple months, Pluto is going to be retrograding back. So it's going to be hitting up against that 10th house line again. So that's happening around the same time that the North Node leaves your sign. So isn't it interesting that your whole entire sense of identity and who you are and who you want to be kind of has been on hold for the past year and a half? And now when it leaves, it starts to release. But then we also have this big wave of change happening for you as well. It's not accidental. It's time for Taurus to be the person that they've always said they wanted to be. And see, Pluto rises us to our highest degrees of power. People fight that like crazy. That's why people hate Pluto energy. That's why so many Capricorns over the past, and Cancers, if you talk to them, even Librans and Aries to a degree, but Capricorns and Cancerians specifically will tell you, oh my gosh, that Pluto transit was awful. Yeah, it's awful because in a way, Pluto also wants to preserve. Pluto is very loyal to things. And so while he is very much about evolution and change, he is also about preserving the good. If we take a look at Pluto from the lens of its association with Scorpio, okay? In modern Western astrology, they say that Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. I don't necessarily tend to agree. I'm kind of taking a more traditional stint now, but that's okay. We can still tie it in. So Pluto, Scorpio, okay, coming after Libra. Libra is the place where two separate people, marriage, come together. Two separate people in business come together. They marry, they sign the contract. That's Libra. And it's usually beautiful. And yes, there's usually love involved, most likely, or there's, a lot of excitement or enthusiasm about that union. In Scorpio, this is where we really get to know people, okay? Like on a deep, intimate level. And so Scorpio wants to preserve the honeymoon phase of Libra and the beauty of that union, but also is forced to go through the power struggles and forced to go through the process of getting to know someone's true self. That's why so much shadow work is done through Scorpio, right? Because it's that forced getting to know someone, and you have to get to know yourself in order to really get to know them, or to be able to meet each other there. So anyone who's been in a long-term relationship will tell you that like getting to know someone takes place in many, many, many different phases. And so Scorpio fights against the change because it wants to keep the beauty. It's a fixed sign. It wants to preserve, but it can't help the forces of nature. Like this is in northern hemisphere, we can equate this to the fact that this is autumn. Okay, this is the time, right? November is when all the leaves start falling down, right? Late October and into November, everything starts dying, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't stop winter from coming. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm using that as a visual to help you understand the archetype a lot better and what Pluto truly is. You can't stop the phase change. If you embrace it, this all has to do with perspective. If you embrace it, this could be the best thing that ever happened to you. And your career could take off like crazy, and you could become so powerful or so wealthy or be someone who truly makes such a difference in so many people's lives, whatever your goals are. This is you rising to your highest degrees of power. And there's usually like a laser sharp focus that comes through with Pluto as well. It's often associated with like obsessiveness. It's obsessive, yeah, because it kind of has to be, because it knows that if it doesn't keep up, it's going to get demolished. Okay? So a lot of changes here for you. And because the 10th house is such a public house, this doesn't just affect you, it affects a lot of other people as well. So it is time for Taurus to really like step up and take things very seriously. Okay. Over the next couple of years, you'll have kind of a little bit of back and forth, but at the end of 24, it's time for you to really start leveling up, okay? We also have Saturn, last but not least. Well, actually, we'll talk about Jupiter in a second, but we have Saturn coming into Pisces as well. Now, I don't mind a Saturn in the 11th house. I actually kind of like it. I actually kind of like Pisces in the 11th house as well. A lot of money comes through here, and a lot of money through high quality investments. And also, you know, high quality connections. You might be needing to make higher quality connections. Now, Saturn can also be very isolating in the 11th house. So Taurus may have a substantial desire to withdraw. You might want to be pulling away, or I don't want to go out. You're not connecting with those people anymore. The reason why you don't want to associate with, you don't want to go out, is because you've outgrown a lot of people. This is not a judgmental thing. You're not being judgmental against them. It's just that you're changing. And they're also changing, by the way. Everyone is changing. So we're just simply not the same people. So you're not going to be able to mesh very well with others. It's just simply not going to happen. You have to find new people that inspire you, because honestly, Saturn in the 11th can be a very uninspired place. It gets daunting, it gets tiring, and if you're not changing and if you're not finding new avenues of growth, you can tend to retreat and retract, and that is when Pluto is going to really kick your butt. This is not a time for a retraction. This is a time for you to be brave and to be strong. And again, the good thing is Mars is helping you find new ways as he comes through that third house. A lot of new avenues. I often think of roadways with that third house. A lot of new roads, new pathways, a new map is being drawn. And you get to take an entirely new type of journey. But if you shut down and isolate yourself from the world, it's not going to happen, and it's going to be hard. And sometimes this can be a very depressing thing. And Pisces has a way of, now I'm somewhat contradicting myself by saying this, okay? When I do the big global readings. Like I did that big 2023 through 2026 video. I did talk about Pisces being a very despairing place, okay? And that's because when we're doing those big global things, we kind of just say Aries is the first house, Taurus is the second, Gemini is the third, and we kind of just use the natural zodiac. But in an individual's chart, the 12th house is very different from Pisces. Okay, they're actually, in modern astrology, we tend to link the sign with the house. I'm starting to learn that's probably not really the best way to do it, that the zodiac sign actually needs to be a separate thing from the house. And so when we think of Pisces, ruled by Jupiter, Venus is exalted. I mean, this is one of the signs that's really pleasurable, right? That has a lot of fun, enjoys the finer things in life, is very grateful and appreciative, has the ability to believe. There's a lot of hope and faith that comes through Pisces. That's why they say they wear the right rose-colored glasses, right? And so I think generally speaking, you know, you have a lot of optimism and good things and really a lot of beauty in terms of the way you connect with other people. So Saturn can somewhat come in and be a little bit more despairing. And so it kind of kills the optimism here for you, Taurus. And there can be a lot of discouragement. And you're like, I'm not that person. I don't feel like I'm a part of that anymore. But yeah, no, you're not. The sooner you can accept that you're not going to be able to really mesh with those old people, the sooner you're going to be able to motivate yourself to go out and meet new people with similar with values that you're newly holding now. Okay. So that's going to be a really important thing to keep in mind over the next couple of years. Your friend group is dissolving slowly, but surely it's dissolving and a new one is forming. But you have to put yourself out there. You have to make yourself available. And that has to be a conscious choice. And probably the most beneficial thing for you is to really focus on your professional contacts and people that can actually help this powerful career of yours that has the potential to grow if you want it to. Again, it's like, let's say you're like a yoga instructor, okay? You're a yoga instructor and you're tired of just being at this level financially. So you want to go out and you're like, oh, well, if I meet other yoga instructors, maybe we can do this. But then at the end of the day, those people might not necessarily be bringing the business acumen that you need in order to really grow you financially. They're just people that are right here. They're right here on your level with you. What you need probably is like a business strategist. What you need is maybe like some kind of a film producer or some kind of a photographer or some kind of someone to help you elevate your presence so you can elevate your income. See what I'm saying? So this is what Saturn in the 11th, you have to be strategic about the people and you have to think about how you are building something and pull in the right people in order to build those things. All right? Now, enough of that. Now, last but not least, we have Jupiter coming off of Chiron. Now, Jupiter, I have this clock set for March 15th here. So obviously we're in the beginning of March still. Jupiter is still coming into this conjunction with Chiron, and they officially come together at the same degree on the 12th. 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th, yes, Jupiter starts to separate. This is good, okay, because I know that, first of all, Chiron in the 12th is a bit of a challenged place. I mean, there's a lot of spiritual wounding here, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of physical health issues. You know, there is probably a lot of isolation for Taurus and feeling really not quite sure exactly how to go about healing certain things. And so Jupiter has certainly magnified that. It's exposed and illuminated a lot of things that are going to help you to move on, help you to heal, help you to mend your wounds, and to help you to evolve. Now we finally start to see the real benefits of Jupiter over here in Aries. And I know, Taurus, you're just waiting, crossing your fingers, waiting for Jupiter to enter into your sign, which happens middle of May, which is very exciting. I know I'm personally excited about Jupiter coming into Taurus. There is for the next couple of months with Jupiter now not really aspecting anything in a negative way. I think he's really positively aspected here. When he comes through, there is a belief in yourself. And that might be the missing component for a lot of people. And maybe it has been missing for a couple of months as Jupiter was building up to Chiron. The belief in yourself, the belief that it's possible, the belief that you can. Again, remember, consciously, you're like, yeah, I know I can. I know this is possible. There's a big difference between that conscious mind and that unconscious mind, though. So Chiron really is more about like what's going on behind the scenes and what's been holding you back. And that ends when Jupiter is done, middle of the month, it ends. And you start to say, you know what, screw it. Even if I might have that fear, I'm not going to let it stop me. Even though I may have that insecurity, I'm not going to let it stop me. So over the next couple of months, we're going to really start to feel ourselves coming back to life. And the courage is going to be there. The bravery is going to be there. The not caring what people think is going to be a lot bigger as well. And the determination is going to be a lot more optimistic rather than, it will have a sense of duty to it, but it's also like, I want to do it. I have a duty to do it, and I actually want to do it. To be bigger, to be better, to share your voice and all that good stuff. Okay? All right, Taurus. You guys know I love you. Have an amazing March. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.